Now, in terms of Ukraine itself, there have been reports of several hundred Wagner troops in Ukraine. It's been a bit hard to verify the exact numbers, just given the way they operate, purposely being very discreet in their activities. But we had reports even going back as early as January and early February before the invasion itself, that some PMC troops were being redeployed from other locations, such as the Central African Republic and other countries in Africa, to move up to the area surrounding Ukraine and potentially go into Ukraine. So now, as far as I can tell from all of those rumors and reports, that was at a pretty small scale. That was maybe a few tens of troops, maybe 100 at most, coming from a location when there are thousands in a country. But what that tells me, and of course, the Wagner Group itself denied it, said it was just routine transfers of troops between different deployments. But what that tells me is that potentially they're taking individuals who have been operating in a country like the Central African Republic for a longer amount of time, who have gained certain skills, who have a better ability to train other troops, and moving them to the new front that they're prioritizing. So we may continue to see sort of skills and techniques that have been honed across various other PMC deployments being used in Ukraine. And I think we can learn a lot from both their successes and failures in other theaters. I think the other thing to think about is just how the broader Russian attitude towards using PMCs is going to inform the missions that they take on in Ukraine. So we've seen that the Russian government really uses PMCs as a way to have some level of deniability in terms of what they do, whether that's attempting to evade sanctions and international law, particularly when you start to get into things like war crimes and crimes against humanity, or if it's simply to be able to exert geopolitical influence and pressure through irregular warfare without directly sparking international conflict. And so we certainly will see them continue to be involved. But the other big benefit to Russia in using them as a tool of irregular warfare is that they can make the PMCs take bigger risks that they would not do with officially Russian troops. So because the PMCs are not officially Russian, they're not officially part of the Russian military, the Russian government views them as much more expendable and views that it has very little accountability in terms of what ultimately happens to those men. And so we are likely to see Russia continue to use PMCs kind of as the front lines, taking on the riskier missions in more contested areas, and really doing some of the dirty work that they are not willing to risk official Russian troops to accomplish. I think it's important to remember here that even though the PMCs are tied back to various Russian oligarchs, they're operating several degrees removed from those individuals through a variety of shell companies, intermediaries. They're getting money directly from some of these states, in addition to being able to sell diamonds or gold that they have access to. They're getting monthly payments from the governments of these countries that they're working with. And they also have a lot of flexibility to evolve their structure over time to move so-called workers in between the companies, these being the mercenaries themselves. We've actually already heard some rumors out of Ukraine that there may be a quote unquote new PMC at work there, but it's also somewhat unclear if this is actually a new PMC altogether, if it's a subsidiary of a company like Wagner, or if it's just Wagner deciding to operate under a different name there because the Wagner name is already being targeted with recommendations of sanctions, trying to hit many of their shell companies that have been identified, trying to go back to Prigozhin. They also, some have speculated that because a lot of their severe human rights abuses were revealed in a country like the Central African Republic, the Wagner Group may be looking to distance itself from those associations and sort of reinvent its brand. But I think that what's going to really give the the private military companies and the oligarchs they're tied to a lot of resiliency and flexibility in evading these sanctions is just this incredibly obscure and opaque network of financial connections that they have, and the flexibility they have to continually reinvent themselves and use different essentially legal and financial covers to be able to continue their operations under a different name, under a different company registration, and to be able to continue to proliferate even as penalties are imposed on Russia itself.